Hey everybody, welcome to tonight's episode of Boro.Dev. I'm here with my friends here in Murfreesboro, and if you're out there or watching the replay, then you're welcome too. My name is Byron Sommardahl. I'm from Murfreesboro, really, like I'm a unicorn. They call me. There's some people that were born and raised here, and there were people that were transplanted, and I was actually born and raised here. So. I know how to get around. I know where all the nooks and crannies are in Murfreesboro. But tonight, we're not going to be talking about Murfreesboro so much, but we're going to be talking about some other fun stuff, which is going to be prototyping your back end with Pipedream. And so before I do that, I'm just going to see if I can pull up my slides, which I thought I had them up, but I thought wrong. But I am like I said, born and raised in Murfreesboro, Tennessee. But I also have done quite a bit of work in Nashville, and I used to live in Alabama for a while. I'm not necessarily a football fan, though. When I was in Alabama, I was a very strong Alabama fan. Not because I cared, but because of survival, you know. And while I'm here in Tennessee, go Vols. So let's see. Yeah, you are going to have to see all the backstage stuff. But so I am formerly the CTO of a Hero Unit and Ackland Avenue in Nashville, Tennessee, and those are great companies. If you ever decide to branch out and work for great companies based out of Nashville, it is a remote first company. So even if you like to work remotely, you can still work for a great company like Ackland Avenue or Hero Unit. They're always looking for more people. And I've also been involved in a few other things. I'm the what they call the dean of students, but I'm just one of the founders of Codex Academy. And I also have started an incubator of all things called Sommardahl Ventures, going after my last name. And that company is mostly focused on helping people in Central America start companies in America. So we're creating digital, like people-driven digital products using owners and entrepreneurs in Latin America. So you've probably heard of plenty of incubators all over the place. This is an incubator like you've never seen before, because it's made up of people that are just so hungry to make a difference in the world, to make a mark, and also to change their family trees, and that's what they're doing. So every one of the companies in the incubator is owned by, or partially owned by, a Central American person, which I just love that. My wife is from Honduras. My kids are from Honduras, and so I live there 6 months out of the year, so I might as well be Latin American too. Hablo español también para los que están ahí y están esperando que alguien hable español. I just said I speak Spanish too, just in case anybody is hoping to hear some Spanish today. All right, so let's enough about me. Let's talk about some backend prototyping. So why backend prototyping? Why does this even matter? Well, we all know how long it takes to develop things in the backend. And it's not that it takes forever to build things in the back end, but sometimes we actually need to try out ideas and try out patterns, or try out just even APIs if we're starting to integrate with another API. And we all know that these APIs out there have Easter eggs. They're not managed by us. They have horrible documentation. We've got to learn the APIs, the shapes of the ins and outs of these endpoints. And so doing that from like just spinning up a backend and starting to bang on it from your computer locally is a pain. It's a pain because especially if you're trying to do that in the browser, then you're constantly refreshing. You're waiting for that whole feedback loop. You got to wait for the breakpoint. You got a breakpoint at the right place. You lose the reference to the output of this or that call whenever you continue on through the debugging session. If you're doing in the back end, you might be debugging there, or you might be console logging out your outputs. It's just there are very few really awesome ways to really get these backends built quickly. So hello. So what I suggest instead is to consider that you're actually in prototyping mode. Like, do a spike. Don't just start building a backend out of you already know what you're doing. We don't know what we're doing yet. Get into prototype mode and build something that you know you're going to throw away. This is one of those examples of a time when you can slow down to speed up. Because if you want to go fast, sometimes the way to go fast is to slow down first, is to take your time through something. So there's so many examples of this, and this is, I guarantee if you try this is actually one way that you can speed up your back-end development drastically. It's not just about APIs too. It could be about just trying out a way of working with something. It could be like you want to try out a pattern, or you want to try out a certain like path of data, or you want to maybe put a test backend on a front end. You want to build out the front end and then have like a prototype backend just for temporary. So if you do that by building a real backend, you can do that. It's going to take you twice as long. When you prototype in a tool like I'm going to show you tonight, you can actually do it way faster, and you don't have to deal with all of the there's just a lot of things that you don't have to deal with. So what I want to do is to help you to develop a new superpower, and that is to rapidly develop highly visible backend workflows to prototype or test your functionality before investing in long-term solutions. Some of the abilities that you're going to get out of this are responding to pretty much anything. You can update your databases using this prototyping tool. You can communicate with somebody. So if you're building like chat ops and things, you can just communicate out to people. You can trigger other processes. You can log anything, anywhere. And the list goes on and on of all the different things that you can actually do with this methodology. So some terms before I go forward are the ideas of workflows or functions. So you've heard of functions in the AWS, like the Lambda world. You've heard of functions in Azure, these functions that can just run by triggering different things. Workflows are different because workflows are actually a string of functions where the output of one goes into the input of the next. And so it's similar where you might string together multiple lambdas, but this is way faster. So and there's no deployment. There is a deployment, but it's a button. So there's also accounts. So when you hear accounts, think of OAuth. Anything that you have to actually connect to with OAuth, and OAuth is an ever-loving pain to have to work with as developers, because there's so many ups and downs and inputs and outputs, and then you might be lucky enough to find a library that works today, but then is it going to work tomorrow? So OAuth is a pain, but not with what we're going to see tonight. And then there's another thing that is sources or triggers. And unfortunately, this is something it's a pet peeve for me about developers. I'm one, so I can have pet peeves about my own people. But sources and triggers in this tool are the same thing. Why in the world do we need multiple words to describe the same thing? Okay, so I'm off my soapbox, but in this case, they actually use both words in the same tool, out and loud and proud. So they both mean the same thing. It's idiotic. Okay, so some examples of sources and triggers are HTTP endpoints, and also time intervals. So just think of cron jobs, or you can do polling. That's another way to trigger. Or you can also be able to respond to other push notifications or webhooks from other tools. So like when a spreadsheet row is updated, it hits the world here. Okay, so now we're going to get into the coding part, because I wanted to just speed past all that explanation because it's not the most interesting thing that we're going to do tonight. So the first thing we're going to do tonight is I want to build a little chat ops tool. And I want to do it just super fast. I don't want to spend a lot of time. Now, I know that in Slack, I can connect the GitHub app, and then every time there's a pull request, GitHub will let me know. And they'll give me a link. I can click on the link and I can go to the pull request. But what it can't do is it can't send a message to the manager whenever the new guy submits a pull request, because I want to do a special code review for the new guy because he's not onboarded completely yet. I don't completely trust him. Or I want to log all the pull requests to a spreadsheet so I can have a leaderboard. There's things that you can't do necessarily with a stock GitHub app. So I want to create a chat ops app that will do what the GitHub app does and do all these other things. So let's do that right now. So here's the tool. This is called Pipedream, and I'm going to see if I can make this bigger for everybody. How's that size? Okay, great. So actually, before I continue, I'd love to find out just from you all what are your favorite areas to develop in, like as far as back end, front end, database. Yeah, aren't we all? What's your favorite though?
Yeah, I'm a SQL guy, so Postgres right now is kind of a jam.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. What about you? Okay. Okay. Yeah, I got my start in full stack desktop applications, but then I went from there to really enjoying backend, and then because I was in my organization the first person to adopt SPAs, I became the go-to person to build front ends. This was pre Angular, pre Aurelia, whatever it's called. This is like knockout days.
Yeah.
Post jQuery. A little in that area. Yeah. I was building a version of Angular for my team, and then they came out with Angular and or Durandal. There was Durandal too, another one. I'm glad it died. But I was really not happy though about Angular when they went to version 2. That was just bad. I mean, I like version 2 better, engineering speaking, but I was so deep into version 1 that they disappointed me when they switched. Anyway, I digress. So I'm actually going to delete all of these.
Brave.
All right. So yeah, I just want to start over. Okay, so this is Pipedream, pipedream.com. And so you can log in. It's actually, there's a free account. It's very generous. It's like 10,000 invocations per month, which is, if you compare it to Zapier, which you could compare this to Zapier. Zapier is kind of like I would say a BA version. If BAs are to Zapier as devs are to Pipedream, if that's a good comparison. Like devs would be much more at home in Pipedream. BAs, non-technical people that want to integrate things would be happy in Zapier. So this is like Zapier in that you can connect things, but it's got a lot of like coding opportunities. So free account, sign up and feel free to try it out. So I'm just going to call this Notify on PR. So this is like for our team. I've got a little app called AnyHasher, and so I'm going to set up the trigger. This is the trigger, the source that's going to make this whole thing happen. Now, by the way, I can set up multiple triggers, so I could have multiple different things triggering off the same thing. So I'm going to say GitHub, and it's got GitHub and GitLab available to me. And so I'm going to say here, anytime there's a new pull request instant, it's going to make me log in, I'm pretty sure. Oh, there it is. Cool. Okay, so repo would be AnyHasher. And I'm going to give it a name like new AnyHasher pull request. I can only imagine what that typing sounds like when on the microphone. I'm an angry typer, they say. Have you ever had somebody in the office? Most of you all are remote workers, I'm guessing, so you don't really have these other annoying people in the office. But have you ever had a person in the office that decide they cannot use the office provided keyboard? They have to bring in the mechanical keyboard, and they're over there click 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 click. I would do that. I would do that. But there was this one very annoying guy at FIS who might live in Murfreesboro. Maybe I should stop. Anyway. Okay, so right now, Pipedream is waiting, or this trigger is waiting on me to trigger this. It wants some sort of like example. So what I'm going to need to do is I'm going to need to go over to GitHub and and if I can find it, and actually trigger a pull request. I may have to go out of full screen and then back in. Okay. Okay. So I'll do this one and this one. And yeah, I'll do this one too. Okay. So full screen there. And full screen here. Sorry, housekeeping. And we'll do here. Okay, so here in my AnyHasher, I will kill this pull request. The reason why I can delete these things with confidence is because these are things that I actually I didn't mean to delete that branch. Okay, restore the branch. But the reason why I can do most of this confidently is because I did this talk a few days ago, and I had all these things still in here. Okay, so I'm going to create a new pull request. So glad that they give me the option to restore things. Okay, so I'm going to create a new pull request, and then I'm going to go back over, once I finish creating it, I'm going to go back over and take a look at our trigger here. Okay, so it says that I have a new event. So if I click in here, then I'm already getting this communication of, and you obviously you didn't have to watch me set up the connection with GitHub, but you can imagine it's going to open up a little pop-up. It's going to ask me to log in. It's going to ask me to put in my two-factor auth, and then I'm off to the races. But as you can see here, it's so easy. If you've already done it once, then it keeps it, and it handles the refresh tokens and everything for you. It's just a thing of beauty. So, okay, so here I can see that it's a pull request. I can see that I've got some different things. I'm actually going to copy this URL, copy the path for the HTML URL, because I'm going to need that in a second. And I can see the sender. I can see the repository. There's the sender login name, which I'll use here in a second also. So the next thing I want to do is I'm just going to click this plus button, and it's going to add another step into this. All the outputs from the first one flow into the second one, or they're available to the second one. So, and it's not just that they flow into the second one. If I have 5 steps, the 5th step has access to all the previous steps, all the outputs. So it's pretty flexible. All right. So now what I want to do is I want to send in a message to a private channel, and I'm going to say this will be the AnyHasher channel. Yeah, for the Web.Dev mini bootcamp. I wonder if I've got access to that. I may need to switch a different one. Or no, that's the only one I've got. Okay, you may have to watch me pull that Slack up. But here's what I'm going to do. I've got this text field where I can actually tell it what to put in Slack, obviously. So I'm going to say, hey, new PR from, and then I'm going to pick the name of the person. So I'm going to do like a double curlies, steps, trigger, event, and then sender login. So then I'll give it a, this is all Slack markdown. So if you've ever integrated with Slack, it's just, I'm going to paste in the URL that I got from before, and I'll then do steps.trigger.event. Request dot, and then this would be maybe a title. That way it's going to actually put a link to the pull request. People can click on it, they can go right in. If I wanted to add more information, I could. It's optional what I put in there, of course. And I could do an emoji. I will do an emoji, but I could also do like a PNG. So I might go out to the web and find a GitHub icon, but I'll just say fire. And username would be, I can give it whatever name I want to. I could say GitHub. And because I use this often, I'm going to click this one and turn off that option. If you don't say that, it'll put a link to the workflow in the output, and it's just messy looking. All right, so before I click test, which is going to post this into the channel, I'm actually going to go into Slack and see if I can get that out for us. It's not pretty, is it? Okay. Yeah, I think I'm going to be switching to another I'll do Codex mentors or operations, and I'll just create a channel. Sure. E private. Okay. Okay, so that's going to go full screen also, and we'll go a little bit bigger there. Those Christians picture. Okay, so here I'm gonna switch my login account. I'm gonna create a new account or connect a new account, and let's see if my Codex account is in here. I wouldn't be so lucky. Should I post it back into Ackland Avenue? I don't post much over there. Okay, I'm gonna have to. I know what I can do. Sorry, everybody just have to watch me battle this. So Codex operations slack.com. Oh, no dash. All right. And cacher. Go. Slightly less painful than I thought it was going to be. I'll just close this one. Okay, so here's Slack. You got a manager over here saying, "Hey, how's that feature coming?" And somebody then, imagine 10 minutes later, anyone? The code review is complete. And then you got inevitably somebody's going to put a Bueller meme up there. And then what we really want is for chat ops to really be answering these questions for our team instead of us having to be asking people what the status is of things. So let's go over into this, and I need to stop this and try it again. It's connecting in progress, so I'm sure it's waiting on me to. Okay, there we go. So I'm going to connect now, and there we go. It remembers me. Okay, good. All right, pay no attention to all of that weight right there. There's Codex Academy. All right, good. So I've got my bot name channel. I do have to pick a channel now that I've reconnected Slack. I still got my text. I've got other options. I can send in more metadata. I can really do a lot of things with Slack's markdown. So I'm going to click test here. That's going to send a message over to Slack, which is here. So there's the link to my pull request, and click there and go into the actual pull request, look at the files, do my review, and then we're good to go. So you can do the same thing with a pull request when it has been closed or merged, all kinds of things. Now, if we remember, the point of what we're trying to do is not only just repeat the same functionality as the GitHub app, we also want to be able to log the pull request in a spreadsheet. So let's do that real quick. Also super easy. So I just go down here to the plus and add another step. And this step has access to all the previous things. So I'm just going to go over here into Google Sheets. I'm going to add a single row. And here I'm going to look for a spreadsheet that is probably in a drive. Let's see. Would this be esteemed? That doesn't make, oh, okay. Wait. Esteemed. Yeah, sure. I'll just go over here and create a file. So I'm going to go in and create a spreadsheet in my drive, and I'll call it Anyhasher metrics. So here in my first sheet, I can call this the PRs. So I'm going to just make some columns. I'm going to say date, and then I'm going to say author, and then name, or title, and URL. There might be some other things, but I could add the number of commits and different things like that if I'm really making a real scorecard or a leaderboard. All right, so now I've got my spreadsheet. I'll go ahead and drag that out to its own screen and make it bigger. All right, cool. So now I'm going to change this to Anyhasher. Load more, maybe it's hiding Anyhasher metrics. All right, so there's the spreadsheet file, then there's the PRs sheet, and imagine having to do all this from our backend code. Yes, the first row has the headers, give it the date, so I can get the date out of the pull request. I could just do like new date, but you never know. Maybe you actually are, for some reason. There we go. That's what I wanted. For some reason, this is going to run at a different time than maybe you're testing and you want to actually use the original date. So the author is going to be the. I can get these values many different ways. I can type them in, and like I was doing before, or I can pick them off of a list. The title would be pull request, and then I'll go ahead and pull or copy this path while I'm here. That's not what I meant to do. Something moved too fast on me. All right, so I'm going to copy this down to the next one. And then the title would be like steps dot. Is this seeming useful to you guys? You seeing any abilities, new abilities? So when I test it, it puts it there for me. So now I can build a leaderboard off of this. I can start to have another one of these workflows that kind of does a cron job, checks the spreadsheet and does some calculations, and then posts something on Slack saying Sean's the winner for the day or whatever, which starts to call into question the development practices of the company, because it shouldn't be about the number of commits, but about the amount of value that you created. But we won't go there today, nor the lines of code. Okay, so the other thing that we want to do is actually like tell the manager when the new guy is committing. So I'm going to go into this and add another step. I should be naming these steps, right? Like, because it's bad practice to leave behind a trail of indistinguishable breadcrumbs. But for today, I'm going to do it this way. So what I want to do is I'm going to set up a gate. I'd call this a gate. So I only want to continue to future steps in my workflow if some condition is true. So I'm just going to run some custom code. And of course, Zapier can do the same thing. Zapier can use JavaScript code. It's a horrible, horrible development experience if you've ever done that. It's really, really horrible. So, but this is actually kind of nice, and this is a real JavaScript function. So I'm gonna call this a gate. And the name means nothing other than it means something to me. So I'm going to say if the steps, because I have access to steps. See, it's part of this function that's being passed in. So steps dot trigger dot event dot pull request. No, sender dot login equals B Sommardahl, the new guy. That's who I am tonight anyway. I'm new to Boro.Dev. Then if it's not this guy. Did I mess up? I put in I introduced an error somewhere.
I think you deleted it.
Did I really? Thank you. You're right. Thank you. Pair programming. All right. So if it's not B Sommardahl, then I want to end the workflow. So that's going to be this little construct here. We have this $sign and go into flow and exit and tell it why. Not the new guy. So if I test this, it'll let it on through. It won't finish the workflow, and then whatever happens after it will be our Slack message to the manager. So we're going to say send a message over to Codex, and we'll send this to the manager. Actually, I think it can't. No, it's not going to be a public channel. I need to delete that and start over. So this is going to be Slack, but it's going to be a private, a direct message. Direct message using the same Slack to the user, Byron. Now we can say, hey, new guy is at it again. And then I'm going to be lazy because I'm just prototyping, and I'm actually going to copy this little thing right here and paste it down. All the variables are the exact same because at this point they're globals. So there's the link to the pull request. Now at this point I could do send as a user, or I could, if you send as a user, it actually sends as this user that is logged in, the Slack account user. So I'm actually gonna not do that. I usually like to send these as like bot usernames. So I'll just say get bot, GitHub. I'll use hours. It's always a gift when the new guy puts a check in or puts a new code in. Okay, so there's my Slack notification. It's hiding from us. Is it in one of these? Surely it's not. There it is. Stinker. Okay, so there it is. This is the first one. That's the one to the team. And then if I look at this message, apparently there's no flowers emoji. But there's our message about the new guy. Manager can get on there, and there's our lovely Pipedream message that I usually like to add or to remove. All right, so this is how you can build some chat ops stuff. But we're here, or at least we started off this conversation because we wanted to be able to prototype actually back-end stuff, not just chat ops. So the next thing I wanted to do with you is to actually build a backend, like a simulated backend API using this. Now we're gonna do something a little bit hacky, but it's prototyping, so it should be completely allowed. And so let's back out of this. I can click deploy. Like I said, I can click this deploy button, and then my modifications now are part of the Pipedream world. So now if I deploy this, then this workflow will actually run from top to bottom every single time there's a pull request in that repository. And as it happens, I can see every event. It will list them right here. So if there's ever an error, I can look at the error. That's really powerful. I can look at the error and I can see all the inputs and outputs, why it broke, it's very, very valuable. All right, so let's go back out to here. And now you guys have computers, so you could actually hit this endpoint that I'm going to create. So if you want to participate, then you could do that. So I'll just go ahead and do that. You know, every good API has to have a base URL. So this is going to be the base URL, and I'm going to call this the router. So yeah, I want it to. I'll return a custom response. I'm just going to save. So that's as easy. I mean, that's all that it takes to create a URL and endpoint in here is just to click a few buttons. So there's my URL. Let's go over here to Slack and see if I can send it to you guys.
Quick question.
Yeah, hit me.
So back where you did like the if statement where like if it's the new guy contributing, then you go to the next step. Are you able to fork? Are you able to be like but if it's not the new guy, then go to this other step that would then be some lineage after?
Yeah, and that is something that you can do in Zapier that you can't necessarily do natively in Pipedream, but it's for developers, so any developer is going to be able to figure out a way around that. And the way I usually do that is by having exactly. Yeah, so I use a lot of endpoints. I'll have a lot of endpoint triggered workflows that are like a little piece of things. Also, that's not that we're trying to engineer this to be like the most long lasting application ever, but when you're prototyping a rather large thing, it is kind of nice to keep things somewhat clean. So it's nice when you have these small chunks of functionality that you can just relegate into their own workflow that have its own endpoint. So I've got a lot of that going on. I'll have things like the other day I wrote a bot. I was telling you guys about it earlier. I wrote a bot that it scrapes all this information, and I did it in Pipedream. And it first of all it goes in different phases. First, it chooses from a list of hundreds of categories of businesses, and it goes one at a time. And you can throttle the messages. By the way, I sent this to you, Sean, so you can send it around. Perfect. So you can. I have the first one that goes through one at a time, and it waits until all of the other processing is finished to go on to the next category. And so it throttles everything so that I'm not eating up my API bandwidth with Google and other APIs. And it will call another endpoint, and that endpoint will go through a list and call a bunch of other endpoints. And it's a thing of beauty. Makes a grown man cry. Okay, so here's my trigger. Apparently somebody has already been getting it, which means you saw it in a browser. You clicked it. Eventually we'll see a robot's coming through. All right, so this is a GET request, but in my requirements, let's see if I can see the requirements real quick. Yeah, so I want one endpoint that can be used for the front end, and then I want that one endpoint to allow us to create. Well, it's multiple endpoints, but it's one base URL, and so I want to create a candidate in the database. Then I want to trigger that candidate's technical screening, and then I want to notify the candidate they've been approved for a job. So the client approved the candidate for a job. So those three things. So I'm going to have one base endpoint that I call the router, which makes sense. And then I'm going to have three other endpoints that do the other things. So here's my router. I've got my trigger. And what I want to do now is I want to watch for a post to come through. And a post using just good REST standards for API naming, it would be the route would be /candidates, and it's just a post. So a post to candidates should be creating a candidate for us. So if you want, you could post using Postman to that URL, and then I'll have something waiting for me. So this one's going to be the create candidate. So I'm going to go over here, and I'm just going to say if, and this is kind of where what you were talking about, where can you have multiple things happening at once, like branches. And so this is how I would do it. I would have different JavaScript pieces that have conditions, and if it's true, then run this code. But that just means that you have to write your own integration code, which once you've already got the OAuth stuff out of the way, most APIs are pretty easy to play with. So if the steps.trigger.event.method is post, and the steps.trigger.event.path is candidates. Then I want to, and I'm going to add in Axios. So I like to use the version of Axios that is kind of, it's something that Pipedream popularized. It's part of their platform, but it's a version of Axios that gives back better information. So their version of Axios here from Pipedream platform. So if it's this post to candidates, then I'm going to await Axios, and I'm going to post that. Oops, method. Post that out to the URL, which is going to be something I need to paste that in a second, and then the data is going to be the same thing that was pasted in here. So I'm going to say steps.trigger.event. It's not there yet, but I'll add it. All right, so that's it. Like I can return this if I want to. I could also actually I'll do this instead. So I'll say response, and then I'm going to finish the workflow. So I'll just say flow.exit done. But it doesn't keep on executing more. All right, how are we doing on time, by the way? Great. And do you need more time after? Okay. All right. All right. All right. All right. Cool. So we gotta create candidate. Let's see if we were able to get a good test in here. All right. Showing one new. Oh, there's one. Post candidates. Okay. So let's see. Did you give me a body? Did you give me something? John Doe. Good job. Okay. So then I'm going to go in and I'm going to create the candidate, which is, I don't know the URL yet. All right. So let's go and create another endpoint real quick. I'm going to go back out to the main menu. I'm going to go to new, and I'm going to say create candidate. And here I'm going to give it a new webhook endpoint. That one's fine. And I will give it a response, and I'm going to save. So now I've got a new endpoint that's just for creating a candidate. It's not something that I have to publish out to everybody else, but what's nice about this is I could copy this, I could use this URL in other forms of testing. I'm going to close Slack because they're never gonna stop bothering me. All right, so there's my URL. And so I'm just gonna, before I do anything else, I'm gonna go back out to my router, and I'm going to paste this URL in here, and this endpoint is now done. So I'm gonna send that in. All right, so it's done now, and we have supposedly sent out a request to our other endpoint. So I'm gonna go back out to the other endpoint, and I can see here that I've got this new event. There's the post. It should have the body just as, what was your name again? It was you? Oh, but what is your name?
Oh, Bradley.
Bradley, that's right. And what's your name?
Joe.
Joe, that's right. That's right. Okay, so there's our body, there's our name. So what we want to do is we want to create this actually, could you send that in again with an email address? That'd be sweet. So
$$sign.respond, not call.
let's see. Was that what it responded with?
That's what it means.
It's because I'm not responding. I'm not giving you a response yet, I think.
Oh,
I'll have to prototype a little bit more on that. Did you send one in?
Just got that same message.
No problem. It's a prototype, man. All right, there's our body. Got an email address, got a name. So now I'm going to save it to the database. Yeah, it gave it to me over here.
mine aren't going.
It's actually, is it not going through, or is it just saying, well, actually, let's take this opportunity and look at if there's an error. Now, some of these are coming through with 2 slashes, / candidate, which means, yeah, it won't, since my little if here is a little bit stupid, it's looking for exactly / candidates. Like even if you did a capital C right at this point, it wouldn't work. There it is. Cool. So I'll go back over here to create candidate, and now we want to create this in the database. And we're prototyping, so we don't really want a full-on database. I could send this out to Postgres. I could send this out to Mongo or even to Google Sheets. But for now, I'm just going to say persist, and I'm going to do this little thing that you can find in the docs. The docs for this are amazing. So props, and I'm going to give it a what's called a data store. So this is going to be candidates and type store. If I refresh my field, it should give me an option up here to choose a data store. So I've got candidates right here from my last talk, so I'll just use that. But it's just creating a data store. I mean, it's basically NoSQL, so there's no schema or anything like that. So now I'm just going to await this .candidates set. I'm going to use the email that was given, which is body email, as the key, and then I'm going to use the whole thing as the object. Yeah, so that's going to save it out. So I can retrieve that candidate now by its email address, and this one is done. I can deploy it. It's ready to use. So if I weren't sitting here blabbing the whole time, I would have had this entire API already built. But just still, it's powerful how fast we can create these things. So hey, look, the schema was exactly the same for the other one that we created. But yeah, there's our John Doe at Gmail. So let's go ahead and go on to the next one. How's our time, by the way? Oh, look, there's an error. So we have a 400. So now we can actually debug. It's kind of nice. Respond not called. Is that what you saw earlier? Right. So we're not responding ever. If you remember, I told it up here. Actually, I told it at the top of when I selected the endpoint that I was going to tell it its response later. And so I never did. So in my create candidate, I'm going to add one more thing before I call it a day on this one. And I'm going to say, I'm going to say return, wait, respond, when people are watching me, I can't type. This is going to be status 200, and body would be, well, body. I think it's body. Then if I do that, then it should simulate a return on that, so that our create candidate actually returns the candidate that was created. And that would make a lot more sense if it was actually like a what do you call it? If it were a database that was generating the ID for us, then it would make a lot more sense to return the thing that was created. But in this case, it's no big deal. So here in the router, I'm also going to do the same thing because it's waiting for me to return some sort of response. And so here in my code for create candidate, instead of just saying done, I'm going to take the response from my Axios call and store it in a constant. And then I'm going to say await respond. And it'd be nice if I could just do res here, but I think the shape of that response is a little bit different. So I'm just going to say status. Could transfer I could move the status, migrate the status from the response from the other call, but it's a prototype, so the body is going to be the res. I believe that would work. So now if well, let me deploy it and then you can try it again. It should actually give you back. Well, I have an error in my code. Or do I? Give her a try. See if you can post it in. No. Still the same thing. Is that because maybe the other one is not? Oh, I haven't deployed the other one. Now try it. Hot dog. There you go. All right, cool. So the other one would be just like, I'm going to create another one that's just like, what was that? Triggering the candidate technical screening. So we'll just kind of simulate something for that real quick. This will be the last thing we do. That's okay. Okay, so I'm going to return the custom response, save that. I've got my endpoint, so I'll go ahead and just copy that on out. So this is going to be candidate screening. Candidate screening. The names are very important. All right, so there's my router. I'm just going to add another step down here. I could just add it in the same step, but I like it better in I like raviolis instead of big balls of mud. So this will be custom code. I'm going to say trigger candidate screening. And I'm just going to copy all this code from up here. If you don't like copy pasta, then close your eyes. That's why, I mean, prototyping can be really liberating because you finally get to copy paste something without people wagging their finger at you. All right, so I'm going to send this post out to this URL. I'm going to use everything else is pretty much the same except for the route. So this is going to be candidates. Actually, I'm going to, instead of candidates, I'm going to say screening because it's a new screening. I'm creating a new screening. So I'll just go ahead and deploy that because everything's the same. And so if you want, you can go ahead and post out a screening and just make sure that the email address is the same as the one that you already posted in. And so now I'm going to go over to start candidate screening. And there's a post right there, came from our router. We've got a body, which we're not going to use the name this time. We're just going to go Sammy Doe. I hope we've got a Sammy Doe in here somewhere. So then now I'm going to retrieve the candidate from the database. And so I'm going to do the same thing I did before, props. And this is going to be candidates and type data store. Refresh those fields, and then I should be able to pull my candidates database. There it is, connected. So I'm going to get the candidate, which is here. Await this candidates. I think it's get, and then I want to paste in that ID, and then so I should have the candidate now. And so now I would want to, I'm going to simulate this. So it's going to be like await this candidate's set, paste that in, and then I'm going to say candidate with a screening, the simulator, right? So then I want to, instead of doing that, just like that, I'm going to say screening candidate and create that over here, screening candidate, so that I can await the response to be status 200. Can't see what I'm doing. And body, which is the screening candidate. I cannot do what I just did that fast if I'm developing this in any backend, even as much experience as I have writing backend. I would not be able to do that, and I'm blabbing the whole time. So, but yeah, see if you can start a candidate screening. Can you do it? Did you get back screening true?
Yeah,
So if I click here, oh,
it's a little bit interesting how it structured the object.
yeah, that's a little bit weird. That's one that you just did.
Yeah, lesser test.
Yeah, it's so Sammy though got it, but that might be because I was running a test. But um, yeah, can you try Sean? Can you try John Doe? And so now I'm curious, Bradley, what happened with yours, so I can actually go in and see exactly what happened by going to start candidate screening and look for yours. That's exactly what happened. So if I wanted to make my prototype more robust, which doesn't sound like a good idea all the time, but I would go in and maybe try to clean up the JSON response or a request, and maybe like I actually never quite understood how I'm supposed to like correctly parse an incorrectly formatted JSON object. Because if a supposed JSON object is stringified, but it has single quotes, then JSON parse will not handle it. And you got to like do weird crap. Like you got to you got to replace all the single quotes with double quotes. But then what if, I don't know, like all null values are none. False values are no, or there's some sort of weirdness about that. Anyway, that's not what this class is about. But it looks like if I look at the data sources here, we can see that, yeah, there's John Doe screening is true. So we're successfully able to simulate his screening. You can hook a front end up to this, and the front end engineers, if you have a split up team like that, they think that you're a wizard. They already think you're a wizard, but you also save the company maybe thousands of dollars by going faster like this. Get this stuff actually working, and you understand how it works. No more guesswork. And then it's, especially if you've used a lot of JavaScript code, it's as easy as taking that code out and putting it into your actual backend, copy paste. There it is. Wrap it in some unit tests. I know you should write your unit tests first, but you know, this is a really great saving or money saving technique. All right, and that's it. And I'm happy to have questions or anything else, but other than that, that's what I came with. All right.